I am a Spider-Man fan, and I am also black. So I'm going to set the tone already before I start this review. And dealing with this part of the fan base has always been frustrating for me because Spider-Man is my favorite comic book superhero, Superman is my favorite DC superhero, and Goku's my favorite favorite fictional hero ever. So like Goku, Spider-Man, and Superman have always been like my top 3 characters, and they're on my banner. And as you can see through my avatar that's floating on your screen right now, you know, I love making my own designs and being a part of these characters' lives in some way or fashion. And when I first heard about Spider-Man Lotus, I heard about it through the Spider-Man Twitter area. And they're very pretentious in a lot of aspects. And I heard about this from people who really didn't like Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I'm a fan of that as well. So if you're mad about that, you know, hey, each to their own. But, you know, it came from that side who believed that Peter Parker / Spider-Man needs to be depressed, sad, and they only believe the only good interpretation of Spider-Man is from Sam Raimi or Andrew Garfield's because it's the closest thing to Sam Raimi. And even after No Way Home came out, and for a good while, the Spider-Man fan base was less antagonizing, but then they eventually went back and pretty much a lot of them kind of follow whatever High Top Film says or Brown Table says. That's just how it usually goes. And this was the big champion of that side of Twitter, with the creator being Gavin, Jay, and like different people in that way. But before this film could really take off, because this thing was being watched by John Watts, even Andrew Garfield knew about this, and it's pretty much the biggest fan film I've ever seen. And I was going to talk about Superman like Son or something, I forgot what that thing is called. I watched it, couldn't get past it all. It was really bad.
I've never faced anyone who could move me, let alone throw me. You've showed me today that I could bleed. I'm even more like humans than I thought.
This is conservative creators who really like all their content to be purely white. Seeing them what to do with these characters haven't really been the greatest, if I had to say so personally. But to get back on Spider-Man Lotus, they got outed, both Gavin, Ward, and Wayne, the lead actor who's playing Peter Parker, and I've learned this recently, John Salandria, who's the worst of them all. I got to talk about that later, which is not funny in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, I saw the tweets, the messages, and I'm a person where I'm not perfect myself. Granted, I haven't done half of the things these kids and young men have done, because I've just learned how young Gavin is. He is 18 years old. So out of all the 3 people in this situation, I'm going to try to be understanding. But even then, some of the things he's been saying, it's tough, because as a black man, I know that a lot of white people in America and pretty much around the world have like this racist, edgy, like casual side of themselves they've experienced at one point, and just hopefully enough they don't get that stuff caught on the internet. And I've accepted this a lot, so I'm not really surprised by it. But we've got in Ward and Wayne, who also apologized. Gavin, who apologized on his YouTube channel, even though he said he will hold himself accountable, and he was like going to throw Warden under the bus until he got caught. So it is what it is. You know, young kid, hopefully grows and becomes a better person. But yeah, no, with John Salandria, that dude is old as hell. Dude was racist as hell.
If you're wondering what his response is to people being upset at him for saying a slur, nope, he didn't apologize. Instead, he went on a weird rant on Instagram about how context matters and it's just a word and you can't give words power because they can't physically hurt you, and all people care about is drama instead of real issues. Oh boy, a lot to unpack there. If more people liked what they saw in the mirror, they wouldn't get all their anger out on the internet. What?
And thanks to the YouTuber Grayson Projects, Grayson Projects, for using or having his screenshots where he pretty much just kind of saying it's just a word, and it just kind of doing like pseudo intellectual talk to kind of justify his stuff, and even more than just being a racist on Twitter, that he's a groomer. So yeah, a dog piece of crap person. I want to be judging this film besides those points, even though I just want to be very known that as a black person, all this stuff, I know it's tough because black people are always expected to forgive and be understanding. And especially hearing other white people say it's just a word and, you know, it is what it is. It's tough to hear, but I'm going to try to be understanding for the teenager, for the young adult, who I think he's dating a black girl now, but that doesn't really change anything. And I'm not going to be understanding at all for John Slandra, dog crap person, go to jail. But for the film itself, I had to address all those things. And if you don't really, and hearing all that stuff, you don't even hear about this film, not even going to judge you. That's all up to you, man. But Spider-Man Lotus as a film, without all those things getting in the way, how does it do? Now, the problem with this film is that, and this feels bad after saying all that and bringing them up, but this feels like something that High Top Films wants to make. If it didn't have Sam Raimi's name on it, or someone that was trying to copy Sam Raimi's style, like Mark Webb or something, or he was forced to, this is the type of film I thought he would make. Granted, I haven't seen his upcoming Red Hood movie, so he could prove me wrong, but it's very edgy. And for Gavin, who had a lot of opinions over Homecoming trilogy, the MCU Spider-Man, the funny enough, the music in this movie sounds a lot like it came from Homecoming. And the VFX team, which did a really great job when they was originally there, their scenes, they killed it. But the team they brought after, when they quit when all the racist allegations came out, not the greatest. Like, you can tell they separated that scene the VFX team worked on with the web swinging and used like a weird cut at the beginning, and then like near the end with the last swing. It was tough to see. But before I get into like the major negatives, I would say the greatest part about this film is the costume. Even though I'm more of a fan of the moving eyes and everything from the MCU, and I really love the costume in No Way Home in the final scene, I think this movie did a great job with the costume. And even though this movie relies on a lot of flashbacks, I think the flashback when Spider-Man's talking to the kid, where he has his original costume from the original series, original comic book run when he first showed up, I thought that was pretty well done. But you can tell throughout this entire run that Gavin is a purist, where this entire movie is just like kind of taking from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon when he visits a dying kid and tells her like his backstory and how he uses his webs, takes that scene verbatim, and it also like kind of just redoes the entire comic run of how Spider-Man recovers from Gwen Stacy's murder. And everything in between all that is rough, because throughout the trailers, it's like showing like, okay, this is how Spider-Man faces the Green Goblin and everything, but it's all like the main action happens at the beginning and like we get flashbacks of it later on. And it's just nothing but flashbacks and Peter Parker commentating how he missed Gwen, and a lot of long takes of just seeing the actors trying to portray the emotion you want to feel with orchestral music playing in the background. I would say the best actors in this, I had to rewatch it a couple times. I think Warden does a pretty decent job. I think the guy who played Harry did a good job as well. And I've heard some people kind of give her crap, but I think the lady who played Mary Jane did a pretty good job as well. I would say the worst thing about this movie is the pacing. There's too many dialogue situations where it's kind of awkward in betweens, repeated dialogue a lot. And I have no problem with Peter Parker being a jerk. That's actually pretty canon to the comic book runs in the early days. A lot of people are so used to the Sam Raimi look where he's more nicer, except for Spider-Man 3 where he just kind of jumps off the wagon. I have no problem with that, but the movie makes it feel like try makes it feel like Mary Jane and Harry also did Peter dirty in some way, when Peter is not even trying to pretend to understand Harry, because Harry's dad also quote Gwen, but he's like, he doesn't even like mention that his dad died until Harry tells him like about it. And with Mary Jane, it's literally copying from the scene in the comics where he's like going in on Mary Jane and calling her all types of words like he did in the comics, but Mary Jane continues to stay, and she's about to leave, but she stays and like consoles Spider-Man. But in this, it's like they kind of try to combine the two things where he sees like the dying child. They try to combine those storylines, and the racist stuff, because everyone's cracking jokes, which is very warranted, about racist Spider-Man. I even put in the thumbnail, but it doesn't really help with all the racist comments and stuff where 90% of the cast is all white. And again, I know how it was back in the day in comics where it was during the time like the 1960s, etc., where most of the characters are going to be white, most of the female characters are going to be white, and a lot of people who go the whole go woke, go broke, whatever the fuck, they don't like the idea of having multiple different races or things like that. And I get it. That's how it was in the comics. I just think, it's kind of weird for y'all to be called out for racist jokes, racist comments towards black people, Hispanic people, a lot of people, yet majority of the cast is white, and the only black character is Shocker, and we don't see his face. And yeah, it gives a bad message. And one of the comments is made in this film that the script was leaked a long time ago, had like a derogatory turn towards Asian people in it, and they kept it in.
And there's a comment made by Harry Osborn in which it says, "Do you like the Fu Manchu?" And if you don't know what that is, it's a stereotypical Chinese facial hair pattern that is used to be derogatory. So, like I said earlier, it seems like they have doubled down on the racist allegations, even within the movie.
So, yeah, it's not really helping, beat the allegations of the racist commentary in this, in my opinion. But even to talk about that with the comedy, for amount of criticism they had over Tom Holland and MCU's comedy, Peter Parker, when he's in Spider-Man mode, his jokes are not well executed, and his voice is muffled in a lot of aspects. The sound mixing isn't the greatest with that. And for these people who really thought they understood Spider-Man a lot, why, when the Shocker is shooting attacks, why is he using different people as he's using the criminals to block Shocker's attacks? Yeah, that's not very Spider-Man like, in my opinion. And the action sequences are very what can I say, very close up, shaky, and there's no real, like, we see Spider-Man flip a couple of times, but it's very immature-ish. And the big fight, which is Spider-Man and Green Goblin, happens like 40 minutes into the film, when this film is like an hour and 40, like not talking about the credits. So that's a ballsy move to have the biggest fight being like in the middle, and then the rest of the movie is just the pressure itself. Like, there's nothing wrong with Spider-Man feeling bad. Actually, a lot of Spider-Man fans want that. That's why they didn't like Homecoming or whatever, even though in No Way Home, Tom Holland's Spider-Man suffers the most out of any live adaptation. But this film is very just pretentious in the way of just how they handle all those emotions, and just the constant like AMV style of just long takes with just orchestral music playing. Granted, I think the best times it was used when Peter Parker was looking back at that video where he was seeing him hang out with Gwen, Mary Jane, and Harry. I think it could have been cut down a lot, but that was the best use of it. But seeing Harry walk around the city for like 5 minutes doing that was not necessary. And the long takes of like looking at the city last for a very long time. And the biggest part of this movie is when Spider-Man visits the dying kid. And it's tough because it's really hard to have a kid act well. You know what I mean? And John Solandra was apparently the actor, the lead actor, trying to help them act better. Piece of crap person, by the way. It didn't really help the kid. And to be honest, the way they handle Spider-Man telling his backstory, because they try to do the whole thing where like the kid asks too many questions and wonders what happens to Gwen, and Peter doesn't really know how to handle it. So he proceeds the trauma dump on the kid and like just having grown man conversations with a child. You know what I mean? It could have happened that way in the 90s cartoon. It didn't. But I just don't think that's how Spider-Man would handle it, because this is not Spider-Man who's like year 1, year 2 in. This Spider-Man's been doing this for a long time. He's fought the Sinister Six. He's been through a lot of stuff. And I just think a Spider-Man would talk to a kid in that way. And even the big emotional scene with the mom is telling him have something to believe in. The acting is iffy there. But I do like the background and like the flashback scenes they use in that one, but this film relies a lot on like flashing back to like Peter wanting to marry Gwen, which I think in that cut it was pretty good, where he decided not to use the ring and everything. But the emotional levity in this film is almost non-existent in a lot of aspects. It's just like a teen drama in a way, instead of more of an adult drama, which kind of comes from the lead director being 18 years old and not really experiencing much. And I also heard later that the ladies in this film had to kind of like improv some of their commentary, because it doesn't really know how women will talk to one another outside of just relying on the comics. But long story short, with Spider-Man Lotus, I think this film is one of the better, like at least looks like the best fan film I've seen in a while, like in terms of like some of the VFX. I think even the VFX when Spider-Man's standing in the rain and thinking about what happened, I think there's some pretty good shots like implying what happened to Green Goblin. So I think there's some good techniques there, but the amount of drama and legit real crimes around this film is deserved to talk about, and I don't blame anyone for not giving this film a chance because of it, because this is real stuff, real people. And I say that as a film, it's okay. It's okay to bad, to be honest, because the pacing is just so slow. This film did not need to be an hour 40, 2 hours plus credits. And I just think this is just a lesson to humble yourself when you feel like you can do so much better than the people who create these things, because it's not even mentioning the Superman fan film, where that makes this movie look like a masterpiece, to be honest with you.
I'm even more like humans than I thought.
But for the people who worked on this film, who are not racist, who are not bigots, I'm so sorry. And for the people who donated to this film, I feel bad that your name is now forever attached, because I think some people try to remove their name from it and then they didn't get their name removed. Biggest highlights, the costume, some cuts with the kid, and like I think the costume designs are really great, and the guy who went into the costume was good, but the interpretation of Spider-Man's fighting was bad. Him using villains or using criminals to block Shocker's attacks were bad. And just the messaging in this, where it's like Peter needs to like be there for his friends and people that's in his life, but in the very end of the film, he kind of says screw his friends to be Spider-Man. I get it. He has to give up, he has to sacrifice a few things, but to not show up for that is contradicting messaging. So I would give this film a strong 5 to 6 out of 10, not counting the very terrible people, at least terrible person, because I want to give Waden, he's in his early 20s, I'm going to hope he grows as a person, and Gavin, who's a teenager, hope he grows as a person and learn like not to say certain things that'll catch up with you. I think we all are human, we all have to understand that. But for the piece of crap who played Green Goblin, jail time. You know what I mean? So if I had to think about all that, it would be like a 2 out of 10 or 1 out of 10. You know what I mean? So let me know in the comment section down below. If you're a person of color, do you want to forgive Waden or Gavin in any way? Let me know down in the comment section down below. As a Spider-Man fan, do you think they did a good job interpreting Spider-Man's character in any way or form? And yeah, man, I love Spider-Man. I love comics, but it's tough when like one of the biggest hyped up fan films kind of disappoints, and the people who's a part of it and the people who's a part of a lot of these fan films are not the greatest of people. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. With great power comes great responsibility. Remember that messaging. Remember what Spider-Man actually stands for. SonTJ, peace. Love you all.